This video didn't find you by accident. It couldn't have reached you yesterday. It couldn't have reached you last week, because your consciousness wasn't at the exact vibrational threshold where real trust becomes possible. Not belief, not hope, not spiritual performance. Cellular trust, the kind of trust that changes your electromagnetic field so completely that reality stops feeling random and starts feeling responsive. Once you really trust quantum physics, weird things start to happen. Not cute weird, not law of attraction weird, structural weird. Reality behaves like it's listening. Timing behaves like it's coordinated. Solutions appear from angles your logical mind would never approve of until they work perfectly. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That strange recognition that the moment you relax, things move. The moment you stop monitoring, outcomes accelerate. The moment you surrender control, life starts reorganizing, as if an invisible intelligence finally has permission to operate. This isn't coincidence. This isn't placebo. This is quantum coherence. Most people say they trust the quantum field while secretly bracing for disappointment. They call it being smart. They call it being realistic. But it's just doubt wearing a professional mask. And doubt creates interference. Monitoring creates static. Static collapses limitation. Control selects smaller probability structures. But when you stop interfering, when you trust so fully that you don't need proof, your field becomes clean, coherent, transparent. And a coherent observer doesn't just witness reality. It collapses better realities. That's why the weirdness starts only after trust becomes real. And if you're here right now, it's because your system is already crossing the line where the old rules stop applying. Here are the specific signs that confirm you're not imagining this. 1. Time stops behaving normally. Hours pass like minutes when you're surrendered. Minutes expand into rich, detailed experience when you're fully present. This isn't being in the zone. It's your consciousness shifting how it interacts with temporal probability. Linear time is a side effect of predictable observation. Trust breaks predictability. 2. Synchronicities become precise, not vague. It's not just seeing numbers. It's thinking a thought and receiving the exact information you needed through a conversation, a message, a sleuthy line on a screen within minutes. The field isn't entertaining you. It's coordinating. Your trust is creating the conditions for higher order probability alignment. 3. Your body softens without explanation. Chronic tension releases without stretching. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw unclenches. Sleep becomes deeper even when hours are fewer. Energy rises without changing anything. This is not imagination. Your nervous system is exiting survival vigilance. Coherence begins. In the body first, because the body is the first receiver of the field. 4. Solutions arrive fully formed. Not figured out, downloaded. You wake up with a complete answer. You suddenly know what to say. You see the next move without calculating. This is non-local intelligence. When trust clears interference, information can route through awareness without needing linear reasoning. 5. You stop needing constant reassurance. You don't obsess, you don't check, you don't refresh the same apps looking for proof. That compulsion fades because your attention is no longer negotiating between trust and fear. When trust is partial, you monitor. When trust is complete, monitoring feels pointless, almost embarrassing, because your system knows it disrupts the signal. 6. Technology reacts to your state. Devices glitch when you force. They cooperate when you're coherent. Messages arrive at eerie timing. Things randomly fix themselves after you stop fighting them. Technology is electromagnetic. Your field is electromagnetic. When your coherence changes, your interaction with systems changes. 7. Animals and children respond differently. They stare longer. They come closer. They settle around you. They're not impressed by your words. They respond to coherence. Sensitive beings feel ordered fields as safety. When you're truly trusting, your energy stops broadcasting threat. It broadcasts stability. 8. Your environment rearranges with less effort. Parking opens, delays dissolve, meetings reschedule themselves in your favor without manipulation. People offer help without being asked. This is not magic. This is probability selection changing because you are no longer collapsing resistance timelines through control. 9. Emotional polarity rises, then stabilizes. At first, you feel both excited and unsettled, calm and electric. That's your identity adjusting to a wider range of possible outcomes. Then it stabilizes into a quiet certainty, not hype, certainty. The field always feels weird right before it becomes your new normal. 10. The biggest confirmation. You're here. Out of all the content you could have landed on, this is what your attention locked onto. That's not an accident. That's resonance. The moment you can receive this frequency without rejecting it, you're already changing the probability structure of your life. And once this threshold is crossed, the weirdness doesn't stop. It escalates until trust becomes your default. And reality responds like it's been waiting for you to get out of the way. Nothing you went through was random. The relationships that ended, the jobs that collapsed at the exact moment you thought you finally had stability, the financial pressure that forced you to face life without your usual safety nets, the isolation that made you feel like nobody could understand what you were sensing. That wasn't punishment. That was quantum preparation. Because genuine trust is not a concept, it's a frequency. And frequencies are trained through pressure. As long as you had reliable backups, you could keep pretending you trusted the quantum field while secretly trusting control. As long as you could figure it out, you didn't have to surrender. As long as you could force outcomes, you never had to discover what happens when the field is allowed to orchestrate. So quantum energy did what it always does. It removed the dependencies. It dismantled the false certainties. It stripped away the identities that were too heavy to carry higher probability structures. Your confusion wasn't you failing. It was the field dissolving your addiction to understanding before trusting. Your uncertainty wasn't a sign you were off track. It was your system being trained to hold open space without collapsing into fear. And that isolation you felt, that wasn't rejection. That was electromagnetic quarantine, a recalibration window where your sensitivity could sharpen without being contaminated by collective doubt patterns. Think of a seed. It doesn't grow because it gets light. It grows because pressure and darkness force transformation. The seed doesn't believe in sprouting. It becomes ready. That's what happened to you. Every time you thought life was taking something away, it was removing interference. Every time you thought you were being delayed, the field was aligning timing across variables your mind couldn't even perceive. Every time you were forced to wait, you were learning the most advanced skill on earth. Trust without proof. And now that you've reached this threshold, something is happening while you listen. Not emotionally, electromagnetically. Can you feel it? That settling in the chest. That subtle softening behind the eyes. That quiet shift where the body loosens before the mind can explain why. This isn't metaphor. This isn't imagination. This is your nervous system recalibrating from survival vigilance to quantum coherence. Because the biggest secret isn't that trust makes reality magical. The biggest secret is that trust removes the noise that was blocking reality's natural intelligence from flowing through you. When doubt is present, your field is fragmented. You send mixed signals. One part of you asks, another part of you braces. One part of you desires, another part of you prepares for disappointment. That fracture creates static. But when trust becomes whole, when you surrender completely, the static disappears. And the quantum field can finally route outcomes through pathways your logic would never authorize. This is why the weird things don't start when you learn more. They start when you stop interfering. You're not trying to convince the universe. You're becoming coherent enough that the universe doesn't have to fight you to support you. Right now, as this lands, your attention is doing something it hasn't done in a long time. It's resting, not drifting, resting. And in that resting state, probability opens. Because the field doesn't respond to effort. It responds to coherence. And coherence is what's turning on in you now. I need to share something with you. Because at this point, theory isn't enough. Not to convince you, but to anchor what you're already feeling. A few years ago, I stood exactly where you are now. On the outside, everything looked aware. I understood manifestation. I could explain the observer effect. I had language for the quantum field. But my life wasn't moving. The same patterns kept resurfacing. Different faces, same dynamics, different goals, same resistance. Every morning I would scan reality for proof that things were shifting. Every night I would replay the day, measuring progress. I thought I was being conscious. What I was actually doing was freezing probability. Because constant observation is not neutral. It collapses the same timeline again and again. The realization didn't come gently. It landed like a rupture. I wasn't observing reality. I was policing it, monitoring outcomes, checking alignment, waiting for confirmation. And that constant checking was broadcasting one message to the field. I don't trust you. The moment I saw that, something changed immediately. Not emotionally, structurally. I stopped watching for signs, stopped measuring progress, stopped trying to steer outcomes. I didn't affirm, I didn't visualize, I didn't do anything. I rested. And within weeks, life reorganized without effort. People exited cleanly, without drama. New connections appeared without strategy. Opportunities aligned without chasing. My body relaxed in a way it never had before. It wasn't gradual. It was quantum. That's how I know what you're standing inside right now. Because what you're experiencing isn't inspiration. It's recognition. And here's the mechanism. Without mysticism, without soft language. Your reality exists as multiple probability futures in superposition. Nothing is fixed until observed. But observation is not passive. The quality of attention determines which probability structure stabilizes. Most people collapse reality from habit. Same expectations, same emotional charge, same attention loops. That's why life feels repetitive. But when trust becomes real, those collapse patterns fail. Attention no longer knows where to lock. The old timelines lose gravity. This creates the edge. At the edge, old outcomes stop repeating. The mind feels disoriented. Time feels unstable. The body begins recalibrating. This is why you can't think your way through it. Thinking belongs to the old collapse. Effort reinforces the old signal. Only surrender works here. Not giving up. Removing prediction. The moment you stop demanding certainty, the field has room to reorganize. The moment you stop fixing outcomes, coherence emerges naturally. This is why edges feel urgent, because they don't stay open. Missed edges don't disappear. They close and return later as heavier cycles. That pressure you felt, it's not anxiety. It's timing. The field is open now, and it's waiting for one thing only, your full trust. At the edge, nothing changes by accident. Everything changes by choice. Not a dramatic choice. Not an emotional one. A structural one. Most people fail here for one reason only. They try to choose both timelines at the same time. They say they trust while secretly holding control. They surrender while keeping backups. They relax while watching for proof. That split fractures coherence, and fractured coherence collapses you back into the loop. Here are the choices that matter now, not as philosophy, as mechanics. First, surrender or control. Control feels intelligent, responsible, safe. But at this level, control is an outdated operating system. Surrender isn't passivity. It's removing the demand that reality obey past logic. The moment you stop micromanaging outcomes, probability opens. Second, trust or fear. Fear doesn't announce itself loudly. It disguises itself as being careful. But fear always collapses contraction timelines. Trust allows uncertainty without bracing. Every time you relax inside not knowing, the field expands. Third, discernment or loyalty. Some connections cannot cross this edge with you. Staying attached out of history or obligation splits your field. Discernment isn't rejection, it's physics. Fourth, old identity or new container. You cannot carry who you were into what's emerging. Titles, roles, stories, even self-images must loosen. Identity rigidity collapses edges. Flexibility stabilizes them. Fifth, gradual or quantum. There is no halfway collapse, no testing it out. You leap or you recycle. Trying to ease across signals hesitation, and hesitation collapses backwards. Sixth, victim or creator. Not philosophically, mechanically. Victim consciousness observes from outside. Creator consciousness participates from coherence. The moment you own your role as observer-collapser, the loop dissolves. Seventh, alone or entangled. No one crosses alone. Coherence amplifies through resonance. Isolation weakens the signal. Collective alignment stabilizes it. You don't need to choose perfectly. You need to stop choosing both sides. Now, here is the exact protocol. Not theory, not inspiration. A system that works because it aligns with how the quantum field actually responds. First, recognize the edge. Say internally once, I am at the edge. Old patterns cannot carry me forward. Naming the state stabilizes awareness. Second, stabilize the nervous system. Breathe in through the nose for 4 counts, out through the mouth for 6. Do this for 3 minutes. While breathing, repeat, I am safe in uncertainty. The body must relax before probability can shift. Third, release attachment. Write down everything you're trying to control: people, outcomes, timing, identity. Then say, I release the grip. I keep the direction. Direction without grip preserves coherence. Fourth, define non-negotiables. Choose 3 values you will not violate. Not goals, values. Values anchor timelines without dictating form. Fifth, 1 quantum-aligned action daily. Each day, take 1 action that feels aligned but unfamiliar. The field responds to movement, not intention. Sixth, track alignment, not lack. Each night, note any synchronicity, however small. This retrains attention toward emergence. Seventh, communicate with the quantum self. Visualize the version of you already across the edge. Ask 1 question. Do not force language. Receive sensation, image, or knowing. Eighth, complete the leap. Say this once, fully present. I choose coherence over repetition. Do not repeat it. Repetition signals doubt. This protocol doesn't cause the leap. It removes resistance so the leap can occur. What comes next is what happens after the collapse. Once the collapse happens, here's what unfolds. Not symbolically, sequentially. In the first minute, there is a quiet. Not peace, clarity. The internal pressure drops. Your body exhales before your mind understands why. This is coherence locking in. The quantum field responds to commitment immediately. In the first hour, perception sharpens. Colors feel slightly clearer. Sound feels cleaner. Thoughts slow, not because you force them to, but because they're no longer needed to manage uncertainty. You're not searching. You're available. Availability is what probability responds to. In the first day, reality begins answering without being asked. A message arrives. A delay dissolves. Something that felt immovable shifts with no explanation. This isn't manifestation. This is friction disappearing because you're no longer collapsing resistance timelines. Within the first week, people reorganize. Some drift away cleanly without conflict. Others appear effortlessly. Conversations feel different. Less performance, more precision. Your energy stabilizes higher without effort. You're not managing yourself anymore. Within 2 weeks, your body recalibrates. Sleep patterns change, appetite adjusts, old stress signatures release. This is cellular information updating. Cells respond to coherent signals faster than the mind ever could. Within a month, life flows where it used to stall. Opportunities align that once required pushing. Creativity moves without force. Money, support, and resources begin arriving smoothly, not dramatically, but cleanly. Smoothness is the signature of alignment. Within 3 months, identity stabilizes around presence instead of narrative. You stop asking, "Am I doing this right?" That question belongs to the loop. Confidence emerges without bravado. Certainty without rigidity. At 6 months, the old life feels distant, not painful, irrelevant. You're no longer managing reality. You're moving with it. That's the new baseline. Now understand this clearly. This window is not permanent. Edges open when individual readiness intersects with collective instability. Right now, the collective field is destabilized, which makes quantum shifts easier for those who are ready. This isn't fear. This is physics. When the field stabilizes again, edges close. Missed edges don't vanish. They calcify. They return later as heavier cycles. That urgency you felt isn't pressure. It's resonance with a closing gate. Globally, observer loops are destabilizing. Old systems, identities, and narratives are collapsing because they can no longer maintain coherence. Humanity is bifurcating. One track doubles down on control and repetition. The other stabilizes coherence and creative participation. Neutrality is collapsing. Indecision is collapsing. Only coherence carries forward. If you move now, the field carries you. If you hesitate, you carry yourself, and it's heavier. Your future self already crossed. That's why the pull feels undeniable. This isn't about belief. It's about timing. And the timing is now. What you're doing right now isn't personal. It only felt personal while you were trapped inside the loop. At the quantum level, consciousness is not isolated. It's entangled. Every time one observer stabilizes coherence, it weakens identical loops in others. People you'll never meet. Lives you'll never touch directly. Timelines you'll never see. This is how evolution actually moves. Not through ideas, not through leaders, through stabilized nodes. You are a node. When you stop collapsing fear-based timelines, the field around you loosens. Conversations shift. People question patterns they never questioned before. Opportunities open for others simply because you're no longer reinforcing limitation structures with your attention. This is morphic resonance. This is quantum entanglement at scale. That pressure you felt, the sense that this matters beyond you, that wasn't imagination. It was your system recognizing its role before your identity could name it. You're not here to convince anyone. You're not here to save anyone. You're here to stabilize. And stabilization is service. That's why things around you have been reorganizing, why some relationships couldn't follow, why your tolerance for incoherence dropped so sharply. A coherent field entrains unstable ones, not by force, by presence. This is how collective shifts actually happen. And now, this has to be sealed, not symbolically, energetically. Still your body. Let your spine rise naturally. Place one hand on your chest. Take 3 slow breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. On the 3rd exhale, allow these words to move through you, not as affirmation, but as declaration. I choose coherence over repetition. I release the observer loop. I allow reality to reorganize now. Notice the body's response. That response is the field registering commitment. Within the next 24 hours, take one action that reflects this choice. One message sent. One boundary honored. One decision made without checking for permission. Action collapses reality. Now anchor it. Write one word in the comments. Coherent. Not to explain. Not to perform. This is an engagement. This is registration. The loop is dissolving. The new timeline is live. This is where the transmission closes. Not because something ends, but because something stabilizes. You didn't change reality. You stopped interfering with it. And that distinction matters more than anything else you've heard. What's different now isn't that life will suddenly become dramatic. It's that life will stop arguing with you. You'll notice fewer internal debates, fewer second guesses, less need to narrate what you're doing or why. Not because you became passive, but because coherence doesn't need commentary. From here on, alignment will feel obvious. When something belongs, it will move. When it doesn't, it will fade. No force, no justification, no chasing. That's how you'll know this wasn't imagination. Because imagination excites, but coherence simplifies. You'll stop asking, am I on the right path? Because that question only exists when attention is split. You'll stop waiting for permission, not out of rebellion, out of quiet authority. And perhaps the strangest realization of all will settle in. Reality was never resisting you. It was responding precisely to the signals you were sending. The moment those signals unified, the field responded in kind. This is not the beginning of effort. It's the end of interference. And from here, life won't feel like something you're trying to manage. It'll feel like something you're moving with. Naturally, precisely, inevitably.